Welcome back to the shop, everybody. Nathan Wilson, Driving Dreams Restorations here in Central Florida. Wanted to do a quick little video about in the process of wiring this 64. So you guys probably know from some of my older videos that I usually wire these cars from scratch when I'm doing a full build. So this one's going to be no exception. So I wanted to kind of describe a little bit. I'll try to keep this as quick as possible of the process. So I get asked all the time, does anybody sell a kit for these cars? No. And it's kind of obvious why. You can see this is like, you wouldn't be able to do like a painless wiring kit, 20 circuits or whatever. It would never work, especially for a convertible. There's just way too much going on in this car. The other question we get all the time is, can I send you my car and you rewire it? No to that as well. I just, I'm so busy with all this other stuff. I just, no, it's so time consuming, and it's only when I'm doing full restorations, and these are several $100,000 cars, and a lot of people wouldn't understand what it takes to make this happen. So now back to the purpose of this video is just to kind of explain, if you are trying to do this or even a partial kind of rewire, while I got all this laid out, I kind of figured I'd just kind of go through my process. So I lay out the wire and harness, as you can see here, kind of like in the where it goes in the car. So this would be almost like an exploded view of the car. This is the passenger rear door, for instance, and then it goes up to the front, you can see. So I lay it all out like this, and then I try to take it one step at a time, because it can be extremely overwhelming. And I'll do one little section at a time, and I'll do a door, and obviously I lay awake, and I've done several of these from scratch, and I've done it a lot. I've done several. I think this is my fourth 1964 convertible, which is this one over here. So I'm probably more familiar with this than anybody else in the world. Not trying to sound cocky, but I still sit there like I'm awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, laying there thinking about all this and coming up with a plan. And you need to kind of sit down, draw a lot of stuff out, come up with a plan. I've got notebooks. I've got several notebooks. I think I got some of them up here, just full of past ways that I did it and stuff like that, and notes and stuff. And then like on this car, you see I got my notebook in here that I was working on and making notes. So come up with a plan, get your basic layout, and then no matter how much you think you got it all kind of figured out and written down and laid out, you're always going to kind of forget stuff and have to redo stuff. And so it helps. This is what helps me. I lay it all out. This will probably be here. This might be on the floor here for a couple of weeks. And as I'm going, I decide what I'm going to replace and what I'm not. So like as of right now, I'm replacing everything, but you decide how you want to do it. So for instance, this car has a lot of like unique connectors. So this is the connector for the steering column. So you're not going to find that anywhere that you could buy new, because some people say, well, I'll keep the original stuff, I just want new. Well, you can't find that, and there's a lot of connectors on these cars that are like that. Most of these here in this corner, you're not going to find those anywhere, and so people ask sometimes, well, can you just make me this one section from here to here, or just make me from the door, or the one that goes across the dash here. It's basically impossible. So you have to make up your mind, are you going to replace every single wire in the car, or are you going to keep some of the trickier ones? Some of the first few cars I did that, like that steering column one, for instance. And the reason being, like you can see here, we were just discussing this. So here's the steering column, already been rebuilt and powder coated and all that. And now we've decided we don't want any original wires at all. So we're going to have to take this back apart and wire straight from like the turn signal switch and stuff, and the little light that lights this up, all that stuff you have to think about. And then we'll come out here and we'll make our own connectors. So I think I did a video on connectors in the past, but we like to use the Deutsch style connectors here. There's a lot of different options, but these are like the go-to in the automotive industry. They're just, I don't think it gets any better, but it's a pain in the ass. It takes a while, and it takes a long time to get used to doing it. And as much as I've already done it, I still take forever doing it. So just to make like the harness for that steering column that's going to go across the dash and everything, and it's going to plug into the steering column there where I just showed you. I mean, that's going to take a while, you know. It might take an hour to make that, you know, and then you just string it across the car, and then you make the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you'll have just rat's nests and just hundreds and hundreds of wires going back and forth and across and to the doors and all that stuff. And that's if you're doing, like, if you're keeping the original kind of layout of the car, you'd end up in that situation. So as you can see, like, I'm doing things a little differently, and I change a lot of stuff. So like, for instance, you can see I'm running like a heavier wire across. One of those is for this amplifier over here, but like I'll run maybe a 4 gauge across from one side, like the main power here, to this side of the car, and you can see I do the same there. I run a nice 4 gauge power wire back to the back that's going to run all my convertible top relays and things like that, and the compressors and any of the stuff in the back of the car. So like, you'll see this fuse box here, that little fuse section there, that's running, you know, everything is triple and quadruple fused, which seems kind of overkill, and it probably is, but I just want to make sure there's not going to be any fires. You know, you see it all the time, and it's such a shame. You know, these people have these really nice restorations and they catch on fire. A lot of times it could have been prevented by just making sure everything is fused, everything's on breakers, you know, and you use the right wires. You can see here, these are all, you know, some of the wires that I'm using. So just use good, you know, pure copper wire, not copper clad aluminum. Make sure you're using the right gauges. Go overboard if you're not sure. If you think maybe it, you know, you could get away with a 14 gauge, use 12 gauge, and you should be pretty good. So and here's like the example of how, so that wire comes back here, and then it splits again, and it's going to feed, one of them is going to feed my relay box here. This is for all the top relays. And then I've got a wire coming down and going to a breaker. There's a relay there for the fuel pump, and then one's for the fuel pump, one's for the air ride system, the compressor. Compressor is actually in the tank on this one. And before you asked, yeah, I'm not selling the relay panels. You guys have seen you know, a lot of different versions over the years. Every time I do one, I seem to make it differently. So I kind of, on the back burner, part of me is trying to perfect it so that I can sell it and make it easy for other people to use. So that's part of the reason why I keep designing it. I'll probably never be happy with the end result, so I'll never sell them. So for all the people, I'm constantly getting phone calls, you know, hey, are you selling those relay panels yet? So no. So, and it might never happen, unfortunately. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out and show some examples of, you know, how you can attempt this, you know, if you're hopefully really kind of knowledgeable with electrical stuff. But a lot of it, like I was just saying, gets eliminated. So say all this stuff here, this is all for the auto drop, to make the rear windows auto drop. And I think I did a video in the past about like my little system that I've created. So it replaces that. So I just have a little box that goes inside each door, and it makes the windows auto drop when you open them and stuff. So that makes life a little bit easier. I don't have to have all this stuff going back and forth behind the seat. And it also gives me room, as you saw, for the tanks and the speakers and some other stuff that'll be behind the seat now instead. So between, you know, using modern fuse panels and relay panels, and, you know, I put everything on the little remote systems and stuff like that. Some of that makes it easier, some of it makes it a little more complicated because you're adding remotes and you're adding different aspects. But, you know, so if you can eliminate some of the stuff, that's great. A lot of stuff, not a lot, but there is some stuff in these cars that, you know, isn't necessarily, you know, doesn't have to be there, like cigar lighters, you know, and stuff like that. You may not want those in your doors. Maybe you still run a wire for, you know, like a USB port, so each door has a USB port, people could charge their phones, but that doesn't have to be a big 10 gauge, you know, wire. It could be a little bit smaller, so you can eliminate some of the thickness of the wiring harness and stuff. And that's one of my challenges, is that, you know, this ends up being so many wires going back and forth. And like I said, I usually go overboard on the sizes of the wires. So my harnesses can sometimes get a little heavy. So this is the back. I think you guys saw this dash in another video, but you can see like I put the Deutsch connector there. That's even, I think, for, oh, that's for the door lock switch. So I replaced the vacuum door lock switch with a modern electrical one. So things like that, you know, will be, you know, you'll update things and you'll change things. The Dakota Digital gauges, they're good and bad. People ask me what I think about them. They do clean things up a bit, because you really only have from that whole gauge cluster, this is the only wire that comes from there to the CPU, brain box, whatever you want to call it. But it sounds good and it cleans up behind the dash, but then you have to relocate that somewhere. So like in my situation, I put it there. You can see I made a stainless plate. Actually, Phil made the plate. And then we start, like I just start from there. So this is where basically the heart of all the electronics was in the original setup. So I kind of stick with that and then go from there. So while, like I said, the Dakota Digital cleans up the back of the dash, like you see it sitting on the table over there, but now I'm going to have, you know, a whole mess of stuff here for that. And then like this is the remote system that I use. So that'll, and there's a lot of redundancies now, because like everything that I have on remote, this car is going to have dumps on the exhaust. That'll be on the remote, the electric door locks, the top going up and down, to have a remote start, remote kill switch, things like that. So all the stuff that I have on remote, I also put on actual mechanical switches somewhere. So like I said, I got the door lock switch in the original spot, and then I've got the switch for the dumps. You know, and that way, if for some reason something goes wrong with that remote system, or the battery dies, or it just fails, you still have manual switches to open and close the dumps and lock and unlock the doors and everything else that you're going to do on remote. So that's another, I guess, tip would be, if you're going to do anything like that, like remotes and stuff, make sure you have hardwired stuff as well. Like some of the cars that I've done, shaved door handles, you know, and you put them on a remote, make sure you have a way to manually open that door as well. Because if for some reason this car was parked and all the windows were up and the top was up and the doors were locked and the remote went bad, you need to have a way to get in there, you know. And so this car has like it has 2 different kill switches, obviously, also. So this is one, I'll show you down here if you can kind of see it. Might not be very light, I'm not kind of finished wiring it, but that's a big solenoid. You can buy them online, and you can hook it to, I have it hooked to the remote, and I have a hidden switch on the car too. So it kills all the power to the car, makes it where you can't start it, you can't steal it. And also, a lot of times with these cars, no matter how hard you try, sometimes like that remote system is always on, because I want to be able to, you want to be able to lock and unlock the doors without turning the ignition on. And you sometimes even, I have it set to where you can run the top up and down without turning the ignition on. So that will have just a very small draw. So if the car is going to be parked for a few weeks in the garage or something, you'll hit that kill switch and it'll just kill all the power to the car. I like to do that also just for, you know, the safety thing. So it's a way to prevent your car catching on fire in the garage, which happens sometimes. At least if that kills everything straight from the battery. So there's nothing going to any of those electronics up there, nothing going anywhere in the car, so there's no juice flowing. And you can even just get the little battery terminals that you unscrew and things like that. It's just nice that one you can just push a button on the remote, it kills everything to the car, and then you know you're good. So this video was longer than expected, as always. Just wanted to kind of show the layout and some tips on how to maybe try to undertake this, but it's definitely not for the faint of heart. I wouldn't recommend it for 99% of people, but you know, if you're a guy that's like, the reason I make these videos are for the guys that are trying to do it themselves and they're in their own garage, and you know, they want to build the best car that they can, and they don't care how long it takes, and hopefully don't care how much it costs, because it's going to be expensive. And then they just want to take the time and do it. So if that's what you're trying to do, hopefully this video will help you a little bit. And if not, hope you enjoyed seeing all the stupid stuff that we're doing, and we'll see you next time.